Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Perspectives. If you think you're seeing wrong, no, you're not. It is a brand new current affairs program that will be coming to you live every Monday morning from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Of course, we are discussing, and as the name suggests, perspectives, a wide range of perspectives with an absolutely great panel. I am your host, Brenda Batiste, and it's a pleasure this morning for me to introduce our panelists, esteemed and distinguished Grenadians and men who serve Grenada very well. Yes, I said men. Hopefully we'll have other women joining us soon. Senator Chris Daly, he is the private sector representative in the Senate, and Mr. Byron Campbell, he's the head of the Rural Development Unit. They are our main panelists for this program. We're going to be live on MTV from 7 to 8 every Monday, also streaming on the Facebook page of TNR, Partygrenada, and MTV's Facebook page. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome.
Good morning, Brenda. Morning, and morning to everyone.
All right. Yes. It's Monday, so it's a new week, an exciting week. Lots of exciting things happen. So before we get into the meat of the matter, the weekend lowdown, how was your weekend? What happened?
Well, mine was good in the sense that I had the opportunity to go to a play for the first time in many months. I went to Mr. Derrick's production. I think it's Patient Zero.
Yes.
And that was good. That kind of brought home the message of the pandemic. And, you know, Chris had a good piece on the different terms that we're getting accustomed to now. Yes. Quarantine, COVIDious environment, you know, all kind of new terms. So that was nice. To see the actors actually bring to life, you know, some of the issues that we're facing now.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, should I say it was a normal weekend in the sense that, well, I think the news coming out of the U.S., you know, dominated things to some respect, but a weekend is usually my farming weekend. A lot of weekends I do farming, so I was engaged in this certainly, and a lot of domestic chores too. You know, this was my weekend for a lot of stuff, Chris. You know, you're looking at me?
The wife working your well.
So it was a bit hectic but good.
It was hectic. It was hectic but good. Yeah. Before we get into discussion, this morning our perspectives are going to be around the economy. But before we get into that, of course, we know our economy. We're small Grenada. We're impacted by a global, the whatever happens globally. And you mentioned the U.S. elections. How do you gentlemen feel that what is happening there inevitably happened there with a new president? Let's just put it that way for now, because of everything that is out there. How will that kind of impact things here?
Well, I suppose for us, the major thing is that, you know, the U.S. represents for us a high degree of trade. And when I talk about trade here now, tourism in particular. And of course, aid in various forms and various formats. So U.S. positioning in policy generally, whether it be global environmental, global environment, how the economy performs and functions is going to affect us in some way because we're all linked. So for us in particular, the U.S. represents a high degree of, a big market in terms of the tourism aspect. So once that economy starts to function or function relatively okay, we could see some spin-offs here. So I mean, the election from that point of view seems to be something that is welcomed internationally because Mr. Trump's policy internationally was quite different to what people expected norm U.S. to be. So that has been welcome when you listen to the news of the various international leaders who have sent in compliments for President-elect Biden. It would appear that that has some positive impact. Stock exchanges have started to go back up in green territory and so on. So the biggest challenge for them, of course, is their pandemic issue and COVID and how they manage that. And that also impacts us as well.
Right.
So, you know, that from that perspective, if Mr. Biden's policy is going to help flatten that curve or change the direction of that curve in the U.S. as it relates to the COVID virus, then we can see some positive impact on our shores. You know, so from that perspective, that is our new word, that perspective.
Brenda, relief.
Relief?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, celebration.
Yeah.
You know, as an individual, and a lot of persons, you know, we look at the U.S. president, whoever is the president, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, with respect. You know, you're the leader of the free world, quote unquote. You're the president of the United States. Respect. Didn't see this for President Trump at all, you know. But what I'm excited particularly more about is, for example, the soft issues, like the environmental issues.
Right.
Rejoining the Paris Accord. You know, even the diaspora, so many persons are waiting in terms of the immigration policy and some of those issues. I think there's relief. So it's not surprising you would have seen celebration, spontaneous celebration in so many large cities in the United States. So for the world, and I call it the Chris, we'll focus on the economic issues, clearly, you know. So positive, excellent, can't wait for the 28th of January for that paradigm shift, one would say.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, of course, because, yeah, it's
Inevitably.
hopefully,
Mr. Trump has defied all norms, as you know. So, and he continues to do so.
Yeah.
But you know, I can't understand, Chris, Brenda, why, you know, Trump is there, but the people around him, who obviously knows better, what is their motivation? What is the incentive to support so many things that are fraudulent, that are false, that are wrong, that are lies? You know, it's like living...
I guess if you're enjoying the good times, it's like let the good times roll. People become sort of, I guess, selfish in those times. They don't want to let go of whatever it is.
But what is concerning also, yes, Biden would have won, but remember, Trump would have received 70 million votes.
That's right.
What does it say? It tells me that, it says that he has, or continue to have significant influence within the Republican Party within the United States. So he can make or break you, and I suspect this is part of the reason why many others, like senators and others, Republicans, are not coming out and say, hey guy, you lost. You know, you lost, simple, you know, because they don't want to feel the wrath. They're playing it safe.
They're walking on eggshells.
I mean,
but his influence is there for a while. So
you could say what you want about Mr. Trump, but he has been a mastermind in motivating people and getting his base to do what they have to get 70 million votes almost on the day is a huge task. And I mean, they did that well. So he is a mastermind of certain things. You know, some people may think he's different in other areas, but he certainly understands his base and his, you know, the demographics that support him.
you believe he has another possible term coming? I mean, I've heard the speculation
Not
that he can.
In
Well, he can
2024?
come back in
He's what,
2020.
77, I think?
Yeah, but he can run again in 2024.
Can?
But
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be things that will happen on the way to 2024 that would inhibit
That
that.
time he'll be 80-something, I mean.
Yeah, I doubt that very much.
I don't see
But
it.
indeed, he is a master salesman.
Yes,
we
yes,
have to
yes.
admit he's a
Absolutely.
master
Without a
salesman.
doubt, yes.
So coming closer to home, but we wish everything in the U.S. works out fine.
But Brenda, before you go on, but the big deal here, of course, is the first woman of color, to be a vice president. Certainly be. So that's a huge deal, and I mean, I was always moved to tears with her speech. I mean, she was on. She came across. She touched so many of the issues. She reached the ordinary persons. And I thought that was great, and I mean, I want to congratulate her. I mean, we all congratulate her, of course, but that's a big deal for the world.
Yeah, that was certainly a special moment.
Yeah,
to see a woman of color in such a high office.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Lots of milestones happening in that election. Really incredible indeed. Inspiring, I should say. So coming closer to home, here we are, Grenada, with perspectives on our economy. It's November 9th, and it was November last year that our budget was presented for this period. It projected a total revenue in excess of $1 billion. Of course, we came into 2020, that was 2019. We came into 2020, we got to March, and then we locked down for COVID. And as you economists and bright people say, that contracted, right? So our areas of decline and growth and the almost panic, if you will, about what's happening with unemployment and all of that. So let's kind of hone in on the areas where the decline and growth and, and have some perspectives around that.
Well, I mean, for the first quarter of 2020, everything was normal so far. And then March hit. And after that, everything went out of what we understood to be normal. And now we know what we call the new phrase, a new normal, as we know it now. Yeah, it has been tough. Every sector of this economy, I mean, Grenada is traditionally focused around three to four sectors. We have construction, we have education services, we have tourism, we have agriculture, and ICT to some degree, generally. And outside of that, that is the productive sectors where we see things happening. All of those sectors was hard hit in the COVID crisis and in 2020. I mean, some of the figures I have for the first 6 months of the year, Brenda, would have things like, let me just give you an idea. Banana production was down about 46%, cocoa down 17%, maize and nutmeg down 55 and 38% respectively, and construction was down generally around 4%. So, and then of course tourism would have taken a significant hit, the most significant in all the sectors. So if you look at that, you would say that the economy went into a tailspin. You could use those words from March to now, and still is. And juxtaposing that with the unemployment, as you indicated, unemployment would have gone back up significantly with the fallout in the tourism sector and agriculture, because I mean, farmers that used to produce probably 100 pounds of let us say, to supply the tourism sector must be down to 25 or 30 pounds now because it just isn't the market. And that creates its own ripple effect down the chain. So 2020 has been a difficult year for the government and the country and the average man who have lost jobs and have to go home and have mortgages and have, the bills keep coming. And that is not an easy thing to deal with, and the frustrations and the psychological issues that come up with that. So it has been a very difficult year, 2020 for Grenada, and I suspect as we move forward into 2021 and budget and the expectations, I am told that our budget will be ready this year in November, later on this month. And our new Minister of Finance, Honorable Minister Bowen, is going to be facing the music, so to speak, and present what the government think. They did say they did present when they did the throne speech for the reopening of Parliament that they're projecting a 6% GDP growth for 2021. 6%? 6%. Okay. Of course, I suspect the projection for this year is going to be negative, I don't know, 3, 4, 5% by when, I don't know, generally. That's 2020? 2020. Yeah. But to go to 6%, the sectors that have going to be identified, and I'm going to presume here that construction is going to lead, because construction as a short-term sector is normally used to help with the unemployment situation. It provides instant employment to people in that sector, and pretty widespread. So if you go and watch at what government, I think Minister Bowen announced a $50 million spend in roads and bridges and back walls and so on, and you could see people on the road now cleaning and so on. That has started back. So you could see an effort, and you could see and probably predict, Brian, that I suspect construction in the short term for the new budget, agriculture, a renewed focus and a renewed look at agriculture, and to some degree how tourism and education services, particularly here at SGU, is going to come back into the play, so that you could see a gradual coming back of those services. Because obviously, we see now what has happened. We open up our markets internationally, and we have COVID cases up to 31 now. Yes, that is going to impact what happens. So that growth that you're projecting for 2021, it's not going to be first quarter for sure. No, it's probably not second quarter. Yeah, it's going to be tough going. Tough going. Yeah. Mr. Campbell?
Looking at COVID and its impact, I mean, globally, it's been a disaster. And certainly in Grenada, livelihoods, So many livelihoods have been affected and continue to be affected because of the closure, of course, the fact that, as Chris mentioned, the tourism sector, mindful that a lot of young persons are employed in those sectors, tourism in particular, tourism, education. And so livelihoods has been, even remittances also been a factor.
That's
My
true.
information is that's been done also because you have to think about the United States, Canada. What happens there? We have the rippling effect here. So there's no question about the government stimulus package would have provide some temporary measure of support, but that is long gone. I mean, it helped. The thing about COVID is so much of it is unpredictable. So much is unknown. You can plan, yes, but it's only a plan. And how do we regain? How do we regain? How do we move back to where we were in some respect? Chris mentioned in terms of projecting 6% relative to where we are now, not 6% where we were at the beginning of the year. That's the other thing. So 6% may not be a significant growth in that respect. So the question is, how can you first stabilize your situation? Of course, stabilization would depend to an extent of what happens in the global environment in terms of our markets, whether it's tourism or whether it is to the extent that we can export our products. Let me give you an example here. Let's take fish. You'll notice that a lot of the boats are on the carnage. They're packed up. A lot are not fishing, particularly coming in during the COVID, because the reason why is there were no markets. You could not export that product. Nobody wanted it because your restaurants and so forth in the United States, they're closed. So the market for your product is no more. This is why you're able to get fish. That was a positive of the pandemic, by the way.
You got top quality
That's the reason
fish.
is that you got. I had
for good prices
I had
too.
grade 1 tuna for the first time, and let me tell you, I'm a volunteer on the board of Southern Fishermen Inc. I'm there with the fish, but I never was able to have grade 1 tuna, and that for the first time. Total different taste, and that's the reason because there were no external markets, so you'll see a lot more fish locally. But hopefully we see some positive signs but what's happening in Europe, we don't know. What's happening in the United States.
That's right.
I mean, it's a huge situation there. Those, Europe, United States, those economies or those countries, you have second and third wave of the pandemic. So the question is, we can plan here, and it's important to have a plan, by the way. But that plan would depend on what's happening over there. So I think the challenge for us is what can we do domestically that is not so much very dependent on the external market? As you mentioned, SGU. If we can, if the situation that we can have those students back, because they provide a significant market for our agricultural products.
Yeah,
you know,
not only agriculture. I mean,
but other services.
all the
But
indirect
talking about the
services.
farmers now, you know.
Yeah.
So that's very, very important.
Yeah.
You know. So you mentioned about M&IB numbers are down.
Yeah.
It's a big reason. Who did they supply it to?
Correct.
You know? So a lot of challenges ahead, Brenda, on this.
I mean, the only positive thing, Brenda, out of this is, you know, in the 2008 financial crisis, 2008.
It was 2008.
And SGU and services like that seem to have been insulated. They didn't have, there wasn't any major effect from that service, not in the pandemic. Certainly, education services have taken it. So the only thing that seemed to have had some insulation is the CBI program that government have currently running. And applications did not decrease.
All right. So we'll come back and start with CBI and SGU. And also just to say that SGU as a brand, the impact of COVID on them may not have been negative at all.
Yeah.
It's just that the downstream effects that come to us, we're not having it with, you know, people staying at rentals and the supermarkets and all of that. But SGU as a brand, as a business, its education services, they seem to continue to do very, very well. And that's positive.
Yes.
Yeah, that's positive. It is Perspectives here on MTV. We're talking to our panel of experts, Senator Christopher Daly and Mr. Byron Campbell. We take a break. We'll be right back.
Skin that Nutmeg Princess is very special to me because I think it's the first Grenadian fairy tale, so to speak. Growing up as a young boy and stuff, we never really had positive images of fairy tales where we can see a black princess or a black prince and stuff. So I really wanted the world to know that there is a black princess and she comes from Grenada. There are other stories of black princesses, but this one is a special one because it's a spicy princess called the Nutmeg Princess. So she's a really beautiful black girl, and she lives in one of the most exquisite places in Grenada called the Grand Etang Lake. And it's a lake that has no bottom, right? And the only way you can see the princess, even if you're outside sailing on the sun and beautiful blue Caribbean Sea, the only way you can see the princess is if you have a good heart. You must have a good heart. And sometimes you think you have a good heart, but you might not have a good heart. So you might have to do little things to have a good heart. So to have a good heart, and then you will see her. And she will appear, and she's the most beautiful. She has diamonds in her hair, lots of braids, and sometimes she appears and she'll be singing a song. Sometimes it'll be a sad song, sometimes it'll be a happy song, depending on how you feel that day. If you're happy, you'll always get a happy song. So that's Nutmeg Princess.
Welcome back to Perspectives, and we'd like to thank all of you who are joining us for our debut program this morning. And we continue the discussions. Our panelists, Senator Christopher Deali and Mr. Byron Campbell. Just before we took the break, Senator Deali, you mentioned that in terms of things that are happening and how it's impacting, that the CBI was insulated. Care to expand on that perspective?
Yeah, well, statistics coming out from CBI for the first half of this year and probably up to September of this year would show that applications to the program increased over same period last year. And last year was a normal year. So if we look at that, you could say there's a certain degree of interest being shown by the international market in the CBI program. So that is a positive. Because the CBI program through the two sections, through the projects, which they call Section 11, and through the NTF fund, which they call Section 10, would have received significant monies. That will help in terms of NTF. Monies coming through NTF will help the government with the infrastructure programs, because monies used in NTF is normally invested in infrastructure development, cited sectors like renewable energy and so on. Whereas the monies coming in under projects, let's take for example the Kiwana Bay project or the Sixth Census project in St. David's, will provide opportunity for short-term employment and construction in the construction phase, and of course more medium to long-term when they open and employ people in those facilities. So you have seen that CBI has been resistant to the pandemic in that, and there's a lot of interest coming even from the US market. You'll be surprised that you'll think the US passport was one of the greatest passports in the world. Yeah. We have a lot of US citizens wanting to have a second option.
Right.
And looking at countries that have managed the pandemic well, Grenada being one of them. Right. So there's a lot of interest from that perspective. So that is a positive. And if we could maximize that and do the right things and ensure the program is run properly, we have a very good program. And the program, is managed well. And the idea is, if we continue on that trajectory, we should do well, and CBI should grow and help the economy in that sense. So it's another kind of pillar we're looking at.
Right. Talking about having a very good program and it being managed well, that's from, operationally and everything that, people who engage with the investors and, have, privy to all the information. But outside the general public, there seems to be some sort of demystification that has to happen where the CBI is concerned, as by and large, whenever there's a discussion in the public sphere about the CBI, the concerns are always about Not what you just said about investments, the concern comes about the selling of passports. How do we get our people to understand? How do we demystify? How do we probably put it in the public space that it is really a new area, a new sector in terms of building our economy, a new service, if you will?
Right, so let me start the demystifying by putting on my CBI hat now. I'm chairman of CBI.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, that has been a weakness of our program in the public relations and letting people know what CBI is really about and not. And that is going to be addressed shortly. So there is two aspects. There's the regional and international speak about the program and the benefits, and of course to our locals. What does CBI offer a local person? So for example, do we take CBI funds and invest in the community in, say, developing a playing field in Gore, Victoria, St. Andrews, wherever? And do we say that this has come about because of CBI funds? We don't. Do we put up a billboard in the community and say, listen, you know, this is what CBI has been doing for these roads. We invest in infrastructure. This bridge was built. We have dealt with river situations, so flooding is reduced. We don't speak about it, and that is a problem. So we're going to be doing that shortly and engaging the public and letting them know that this is not passport. The passport aspect of the CBI is just a small aspect. I mean, yes, it benefits and the attraction on the international market for a second option, a second home where there is political stability. You could get sunshine 366 days of the year. You know, we have positives that go with us in a country of low crime. People are looking for that for their family and development of their family and having a second home, a second option. The questions will come. Do we have the kind of medical background, the medical infrastructure to support a community like that that will say, okay, I'm moving my family from Canada or from Belarus or someplace and bring them here to Grenada, offer them a villa. They could work remotely on their system. Do we have the IT infrastructure to facilitate? These are the kind of attendant issues that we need to look at. But the thing here is that there's great opportunity.
Right.
And we need to strategically structure that. We had last week a program in investment migration that was hosted by Cooperative Bank, and all the stakeholders were there. So we all had a chat about, you know, the weaknesses in the program and how we could address it, and the opportunities and where we can go. And you know, Grenada only occupies 2% of the world market in CBI, and the world market in CBI is $1 trillion business.
It is.
So could you imagine if we were to
Because I don't think that we wrap our heads around the fact that there are individuals in the world with enormous. Excessive wealth.
Yeah.
Brenda, I don't think, listening to Chris, of course, I don't think the issue is whether the CBI program is positive or not. I think there's been a lack of information to joint public about what exactly is the CBI. You get the perception the CBI benefits the agents and the people that are involved in it, and there's some kind of underhand nature of it. And where does the money go? What's the money used for? So from where I stand, I think more transparency is required, more public relations. Of course, as Chris pointed out, CBI, Grenada is not the only country. I mean, this has been existing a long time in Europe, in North America, in Large America, the United States, name it, Greece. They all have CBI programs. But the question is, more transparent, and as we hear, CBI program is doing wonderful. We hear about large hotels and things that the ordinary person cannot, it's not tangible to them. You know, so how can it become more tangible? How can the ordinary Grenadian feel more connected to, or feel that this is a good program because somehow the resources from the program is reaching to the grassroots or to the community? You know, it may be, but the information and the discussion on it, I think, needs to be more for the public in particular. But notwithstanding, it's generating needed revenue right now, as we know, and that's an area we can talk about too, that we know, for example, that revenue, traditional government revenue in terms of port and inland revenue has been down significantly, over $100 million. That's a lot of money for Grenada, but we can talk about this. But certainly, I think more information, public relations on the CBI really critical for the
Yeah,
public to have
yeah.
a better understanding.
So let's extend it in terms of growth, because you spoke about the declining factors earlier. So in terms of where we see areas of light or upward movement, if you will, the CBI in relation to some of the projects you mentioned, how do you see that, kind of bringing an uptick as it relates to economic movement?
Well, I mean, CBI, through its projects, is going to have interlinkages. So, for example, as we talk about agriculture,
Yeah.
we have a lot of work to do in agriculture, of course. If we position it as now as one of the major drivers in the economy, we have to restructure, and Byron could talk about it. I sit on marketing board, so we have a shared interest in how we restructure that industry, and there's a lot that needs to be done. And there's a lot of opinions about whether it was ignored and the level of ignorance because tourism saw it. But interestingly enough, when you look at the tourism sector and agriculture, there has been significant linkages. We don't talk a lot about it.
Right.
But we have a lot of farmers into farming. We have a lot of cooperatives that have been established because of the hotel industry.
They're a couple, right? They're not individual. They're a couple.
And the hotels have gone as far as, there's this concept of both from farm to table. And, and the organic nature of that and how people view their eating habits now and their healthy eating habits. And Grenada has been cited as one where we have linkages with hotels and farm groups. And they will, as we call them, cooperatives. I don't like to use the word cooperative because it seems to be a bad word, and we just never do well when we use the word cooperative. But when we link it to these groups, you see that there is positive impact. And a lot of these groups are led by women, by the way, and women farmers who seem to be a more structured group of individuals and more business-oriented, sad to see, compared to our male counterparts. But going back to your central question, CBI can help with that in what the projects they go into. So, take for example the medical field. And now we're linking our relationship with Grenada Investment Corporation, GIDC. If somebody comes to Grenada and said, I want to open a medical facility of some sort, let's say to do heart surgery or to do heart procedures, could that project coming through IDC be financed from a CBI perspective?
Right.
Right? And how could we have that symbiotic relationships with organizations like IDC and, of course, GTA as well? So there is this need to link, and all of us speaking from a similar page, and harmonizing that with our National Development Plan, because we have a National Development Plan, 15 to 20-year plan that speaks to sectors that we want to invest in and keep the economy growing at a particular rate. So we need to start linking and harmonizing with these things and see how that can flesh out. And I mean, I am saying, in every crisis there's opportunity, and that is the reality for business people like ourselves. Every crisis presents opportunities, not only about doom and gloom. So, for example, in my business, we will do a 12-year budget for 2021, but now, because of how fluid the environment is, we have to review that every month. So every month, you start with 12 months, January to December, but at the end of January, you have to look at February and March.
Right.
And let's see what has changed and if we need to revise, how we need to tinker. Now, it's harder work, but it gets you more focus on how the business needs to operate and perform in this environment and how you need to react to the needs of our people and the market.
Exactly.
So it gets you more granular into that, whereas before you do the 12 months and you sit back and you see how we could get, now you have to get right down to it on a monthly kind of basis.
And in terms of our economy as well, let's kind of open that stream a little bit, just to pick up on what you're saying about how you have to change, your modus a bit. Are we lingering, gentlemen? Are we lingering on COVID? Are we lingering? Because we still, even in business, you hear people say, well, I'm waiting to see what's happening. Are we lingering on COVID? Are we not, as you just mentioned, Senator Diali, looking for the opportunities? Everybody is saying it, there's opportunities, there's opportunities. But are we actioning those opportunities? You mentioned earlier, you said ICT to some degree. How does ICT become one of the things that really spiral us out of this? Look how we do business these days. I mean, even for the same tracking of people who are coming in to be quarantined, these apps, and so we need to develop to track them and all of that. All of that is ICT. We're talking about developing vaccines and all of that. We have so many bright Grenadians here. Things like coding and all these things become really important. So are we just here lingering on COVID? Or are we really actioning the opportunities to move forward and change our modus?
Well, I mean, it is, for small islands like ours, is not an easy thing. But I want to cite the example of Barbados, for example. And there is a certain amount of laissez-faire attitude because, you know, every crisis with it brings with it a certain amount of psychological adjustment. And, you know, some of us will get depressed because of the situation, and some people don't see no light because of their limited training skills and what they're used to do and what they see coming forward. So that presents a challenge in its own right, and we need to address that structurally. But, you know, when you look at Barbados and the example, Barbados have decided by 2030, their economy in terms of renewable energy is going to be significantly changed by renewable energy. There in Barbados now, there's an excitement about renewable energy and what is being done there, the electric cars, the hooking up. I was even told recently, you know, there's setting up these farms with all these panels, the PVC panels. They're using PVC panels now to sell shares. So you could buy a panel as if you were to go in a business and buy shares in an investment. I mean, there is so much new and novel ideas around this energy and this sector that it leaves you wondering if Barbados could do it, why the rest of us can't do it? And change and create excitement in industries where, you know, we never thought there were, but here it comes. And then ICT is a good example. All of us in business have changed now and gone to ICT platforms. ECCB is coming soon after the pilot project finished with uploading monies on your phone and paying everything in a digital platform and getting adjusted. So ECCB is going to be providing the financial platform there to facilitate business. So businesses have to jump on this now and say, listen, the customer I go out to you, to Brenda, if I want to sell you clothes, I want to sell you paint, I'm now offering you this without even coming in to my business. Everything can be done online. And our people are changing in the sense that we no longer need to sit in an office to make business and to make things happen. And we have to adjust. And that's why I'm saying that there is excitement in that sense, but there is a psychological aspect of, Byron, you know, this is a new area. The risk, you know, change and all that comes with that. And how do we, you know, manage that? But, you know, I always believe, you know, as you say, you just said it, Brenda, we are highly intelligent people.
We are.
We have young people. Let me tell you something. We have some young people in this Grenada here that are bright like pin.
Yeah.
And they have, you know what I find about our young people? They're multi-skilled. You know, Byron, you and
I could talk about that, Chris.
But Grenadians in general are multidimensional people.
And I mean,
we
but
are.
I like the focus too. I think it's a good area on the opportunities. So, for example, the University of the West Indies have registered a significant increase in their registrations in terms of degrees and other diploma programs because they're now all online and they're seeing a significant increase. So skill setting we see is definitely going to go up. So can we use this period for capacity building, not only from an education and retraining?
Yeah.
So for example, I can tell you that I talked about the Rural Development Unit. We always, I mean, what's happening here is that there are a lot of training taking place in solar panel, both installation and maintenance, because the renewable energy is an exciting sector. I know in Grenada we've been
So we have actual training going on.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. You see,
New
we
law,
don't tell anybody. We keep everything
so this
a
is
secret.
happening, and young persons, new law is where this is happening, and I want to big up new law here because they've been doing a tremendous amount of work with training of young people in various areas, ICT, solar panel installation and maintenance, and other areas, you know, because that's an opportunity for the future, presently, because what we know is the price of units have been reducing significantly. I mean, over 40% in the last 2 years alone. So that's major. So it makes it affordable. I think in Grenada we've been troubled or uncertain about the electricity situation, the energy situation with Renlec and the government and how this is resolved. But the quicker this happens is the better, because you can start in your domestic space with 2 or 3 units. and increase on it. So there's great opportunities there.
Yeah.
Investment, I mean,
future,
Byron,
yeah.
and you're correct.
We need to
Yeah.
take a break, but when we come back, we're going to stay with opportunities. And I
Yeah.
just want you both to think about this. Because as we talk about growth, economy, and all of that, the one place we look to is the botanical gardens and the cabinet there. But what about business? What about the rural community?
Yeah.
What about the rest of us spiral in that?
Yeah.
So it's perspectives. We take a break. We'll be right back.
The Nutmeg Princess is very special to me because I think it's the first Grenadian fairy tale, so to speak. Growing up as a young boy and stuff, we never really had positive images of fairy tales where we can see a black princess or a black prince and stuff. So I really wanted the world to know that there is a black princess and she comes from Grenada. I mean, there are other stories of black princesses, but this one is a special one because it's a spicy princess called the Nutmeg Princess. So she's a really beautiful black girl, and she lives in one of the most exquisite places in Grenada called the Grand Etang Lake. And it's a lake that has no bottom, right? And the only way you can see the princess, even if you're outside on the sailing on the sun and beautiful blue Caribbean Sea, the only way you can see the princess is if you have a good heart. You must have a good heart. And sometimes you think you have a good heart, but you might not have a good heart. So you might have to do little things to have a good heart. So to have a good heart, and then you will see her. And she will appear, and she's the most beautiful. She has diamonds in her hair, lots of braids, and sometimes she appears and she'll be singing a song. Sometimes it'll be a sad song, sometimes it'll be a happy song, depending on how you feel that day. If you're happy, you'll always get a happy song. So that's Nutmeg Princess.
Welcome back to Perspectives. Must give you a time check. It's Monday morning. Don't want you to get trapped with us. It is moving up to 8 o'clock, some 13 minutes. All right? Yeah. So trust you're on the road. You're moving with us where you're going this morning for the various perspectives. Senator Ali and Mr. Campbell, just before we went to the break, we're trying to take a perspective on the dependency or the look to one area in terms of just getting the energies moving and changing up the trajectory and getting folks more hopeful. Does business have a critical role in that? And you're in a perfect Patania, your business representative, Senator's cap. And of course, Mr. Campbell, you with in the rural unit. How do you,
Look,
how your take on this?
this is important, you know, how we go forward. What are the opportunities and what are the resources there for? And I like to look of it I like to think of it in terms of livelihoods, you know, opportunities. As we talk about the agricultural sector, particularly as we talk about rural economy, I think there's great opportunities there. One of the issues facing us there in the agricultural sector is the aging farmer, for example. Average age is over 55. How do we attract more younger persons in the agricultural sector? We face issues of access to land, access to finance, and more, you know, technical support services. But there are resources being placed there. A lot of young persons that are being trained right now. One of the problems as I talk about the financing is that young persons have not yet accumulated assets, so they don't have the collateral to go to a financial institution. So we must be able to identify, first of all, certify they're trained and they have the competencies and a plan to provide some level of grant financing. And we see that through the International Fund for Agriculture. There's resources to the government. It's a loan, but it's a very concessionary loan, less than 1%, 30, 40 years to repay, so it's almost as a grant level, available for young persons in that area. Also for young persons that interested in business. There's a basis where they must subject themselves to at least a month of training with the GIDC in terms of learning all the business skills that are required, entrepreneurial skills, in terms of managing a small business. And based on that, they then receive a first push, small amount of money, $3,000 to start up. And then based on that, an assessment by the GIDC with the business development officers are likely to get a more significant loan for the business. So there are the opportunities there, particularly for the young persons. But I'm excited more for agriculture. And when I talk agriculture, I'm also talking about the fishing sector. Because note, we sometimes, the fish, we don't see much of it, but the value of fish exported in the past year was more than the value for nutmeg exported.
Yes,
So let's understand the dynamics and the importance of the fishing sector and the amount of persons, over 1,500, that are employed directly and indirectly in this sector. So it's very, very important for the economy and in terms of foreign exchange earning and livelihoods also. So when I talk about the agriculture sector, I'm talking about both fishing and agriculture. Although it is separated in the ministry, you have different ministers. For me, I think...
And you hit the curve there, because if we are going to change energy, we must have some sort of compass, if you will, to give us direction. So if it's so broken up, fisheries pelt over here, this, how do we...
So it's better, but I mean, that's a technical issue, administrative issue, and I'm sure that it'll be managed. But we have to look at it in terms of the opportunities there. And young persons leaving school now, you know, the days when you can migrate or you can go to the government for a job, that's very limited now. A lot of persons, young persons in particular, and individuals have to look internally. What can I do for myself? What skills do I have? How do I market my skills? What do I need? What training do I need? So we've seen, for example, one area is health services. There are courses taking place now for young people because that's exportable skills. Canada is now accepting, in fact, and that's a positive thing, just to mention it. Canada, the Prime Minister just announced 1.2 million immigrants they're accepting in the next 4 years. That's over 400,000 a year. Opportunities, but if you are skilled in health, you're guaranteed a position in Canada. They will take you. You know?
We can't afford to export more people.
No, what I'm saying is we need to train. We need to train a lot more. There's opportunities.
I agree.
And I'm not talking about the extent of full nursing, but just the health. The basic health skills in the homes and that type of thing. You know, it's an opportunity.
I mean, geriatric
and there's a need geriatric care.
Yeah, care that
geriatric
seriously
care is
lack
really
in
a
this
big
country.
deal, and social services as well.
But a big area, I think, as Chris pointed out, as we come to the end of the year and move into the new year, the question is, what's going to hold the base for the economy? I think, as you pointed, I think construction has a major, major role to play there. Not just domestic houses, but infrastructural work also, a lot of roads, a lot of, even as we talk about the farming community, one of the areas you're going to see significant play next year is in the whole farm roads rehabilitation and construction.
Right.
So this provides direct local labor, notwithstanding the investment itself going forward, the infrastructure, because without that access, you can't really talk about agricultural production.
And I want to build on a point Byron made on the agriculture side, because I think that is so important. You know, a lot of Grenadians don't realize in the last, 10 years, Byron, or thereabout, 10 to 15 years, we have 5 chocolate factories in Grenada right now.
Yeah.
From one.
From one.
We had 5.
Yeah.
So value add in that sector is so critical. So agro-processing. I want to link agro-processing now to CBI. You come to me with a project in agro-processing, and it is a good business plan, we could take you up on the CBI. And can we use CBI in those kind of areas? So that is a kind of thinking now. So that, you know, one of the things, as Byron mentioned, some of the weaknesses in agriculture is not, yes, we have issues with production planning and what you produce when and so on. But the other part is the technology. And how to get young people
because I think what
to bring technology to agriculture.
Because it's a mindset as well. When we think agriculture, we just think of produce,
That's right.
the farmer, the land. But as you just mentioned, all the other additives.
When you see what's going on in hydroponics in the
Yeah.
world,
Yeah.
and how farm to table is operating through hydroponics, for example, Byron.
The
Young people are excited in that thing. They want to
look,
go there.
Talking about farm to table, I mean, the perfect example, Belmont Estate.
Correct.
I mean, the best example we have.
That's right.
And really a model for anybody to use across
And that's
the world.
relatively young people in Belmont Estate.
Young people, yes.
Yeah, Ms. Nayak is a young lady, a vibrant
Indeed.
businesswoman.
And then there's all her energy, her ideas, a great team of people
and they
working
continue
there.
to evolve.
And then the traditional legacy came from, you know, I guess her foreparents, her mother, grandparents, and so. And then it rolled into this.
One of the things we just negate to talk about in agriculture, it is one of the sectors in our country where it attracts the least amount of tax, as Byron will tell you.
That's true.
There is no corporation tax. You get concessions on vehicles. You get, you know, inputs.
Most of the imports
So
are
why
taxed.
is it still unattractive?
Right.
Why is it still
You know,
unattractive?
and it's because of the risk.
Why?
No, we have been trying to get traditional businesses to partner into agriculture. So let's take, for example, one of the huge businesses in town, and you say, who in retail trade? And you say, okay, let's invest in an agricultural project. And take 5 acres somewhere, cultivate it in something, but put value added in it. So if we go into pineapple, and we get pineapple, could we do something with pineapple in the agro-processing? Make juice, make salad, make, you know, the fruit salads, and what is there? And there is a hesitancy because of the risk. And the risk comes from the weather and the diseases and so on. But we can mitigate that.
Yeah.
You have to bring technology. Do we have to do everything in the open? Can't we do huge, what do you call it, that again, Byron, where you plant things under the cover? The greenhouses.
Shade houses.
Shade houses. Can we do an acre, a 1 acre shade house in short-term crops? Whatever the case may be, yes, it may have some investment, but these traditional businesses have good marketing infrastructure. They have good technological infrastructure. We need to marry that with agriculture.
One of the other areas relating to that, I mean, it's a risk. We have to look at the whole climate change issue. And to what extent we can do this transformation to have our farmers more climate smart in terms of their operations. One of the big problems we have is the uncertainty of the weather, extreme rainfalls,
That's right.
and we're going to have more of this coming into the future in terms of droughts. So the question becomes critical, the technology, which is shade houses, but also linked to that is the water management. That means, because basically now we depend a lot on rain-fed. When it rains, we have plants. When it doesn't rain, there's nothing. So how you manipulate this? How you manage through shade houses, and also management of the water. How can you tap the water when it falls and store it so that you can distribute it through irrigation methods and so on? So this is an area where work is presently being done. Working with a South American company to do the topographical surveys to look at the flows and so on. So this is happening as we speak.
Nawasa is a big part of that.
So this is very important. So it's not like nothing is happening on that front. That's
we're so happy to have you two on the panel. You see why you're a panelist? Because you have such a wide range of information on things. Here you're giving us news, telling us what's happening. We're in areas that we You didn't know it was happening.
Well, I mean,
so you just prove your worth. You just prove your worth here this morning. But before we leave, we just have a couple minutes before 8 o'clock. As we were talking about building infrastructure and all of that, there seemed to be a little anxiety out there in the public sphere as it relates to Grenada's loan portfolio. You know, or bilaterals or unilaterals, you know, who owns them, what we're doing, and in particular to the airport project, there seems to be that kind of surfacing. Could you gentlemen talk to some perspective on that?
One of the things the government have, you know, when we introduced the new Finance Act, the FRL, one of the clauses we have in that act, you know, that had set certain parameters in terms of objectives the government have to meet, GDP to debt ratios, employment, the wage bill to GDP, and they have set a number of targets in that particular act. But they also said in that act that if there is a particular crisis in the country brought on by, say, a natural disaster, and we had a hurricane and disseminate, you could suspend the act and the targets in the act and give government flexibility to generate revenues and use revenues to deal with social issues and social programs that you're going to have. Because part of the budget is you must have a social structured program that continues to provide assistance to the people that need it. And I say to people that need it because that's an important thing. But what further is that, Brenda, when you suspend the targets, so what you would have used to pay debt and gone out and millions of dollars in interest and so on, the debt holders understand that this suspension is going to take place for a certain time, and the country needs to invest monies in particular areas that will help them revive the economy that could come back and start paying your debt and so on. So that is one thing that needs to be considered, that the government has that window to use, but it needs to be used properly and projected in areas like the agricultural, productive agricultural sectors and other sectors. Because, you know, people say construction is not productive because it only lasts for a short time. So you need to prepare yourself for more productive sectors like agriculture and other areas that you could do ICT and so on. So it gives them that opportunity. And I say that to say that we need to use that period that we get that opening constructively and ensure that the benefits come where we're supposed to come and accrue so that, you know, we can recover. And no country, whether you're third world, second world, first world, have a formula for the pandemic and the economic side of it. All of us are going to shoot off the hip and needs to react accordingly. And it's going to take a lot of us in terms of all of us coming together and uniting around a central theme going forward, whether it's business, whether it's government or otherwise, and NGO. All of us have to come together. It's not about, you know, the pandemic challenging all of us in all of our businesses, labor in particular, and how we position and how we articulate over the next year, 2 years. All of us need to come together to understand.
Brenda, I just want to say that, I mean, a direct question that this big formula we use all the times, debt to GDP, you know, you don't want much debt, you know. So loans you avoid loans where possible. But you cannot avoid it in a lot of situations. It's almost always more exciting to go after grants, and there are a lot of grants available. And as we talk about loans, there's a lot of, I'm involved in this, I know about it, where the government is pursuing grant financing, such as from, whether it's EFAD or from the Green Climate Fund or from the Adaptation Fund, in a big way, you understand? Because whenever you talk about loans, you get negatives. You know, this is not good for any country. You want to reduce loans and you want to increase grants. You know, that's the general point I want to say. But I want to agree with Chris here that the present situation calls for all decks, all hands on board, all hands on decks, because we require everyone to make sacrifices and to think. I wouldn't even say outside of the box. We need to throw away the box. There's no box.
There's no box.
And a new dispensation, new way of doing things. So that's the opportunity.
Yeah. We mashed up the box a long time.
Throw it away.
Other things mashed up the box for us?
Yeah,
the pandemic mashed it up for sure.
Surely did. And I mean, the one theme I think coming out of here this morning is that we can't linger with COVID. We just can't. We have to live with COVID. and the lingering as to what we do. As you rightfully said, Senator Diali, it really takes a lot of, shifting. Because remember, we have been doing things the same way for a long time. It's now habitual, it's a pattern, and we have benefited from it in many ways. So it's hard to depart from.
COVID has exposed all the weaknesses.
Right. And we're human beings, the most
It's a new
resilient
world.
of
It's a
all
new world.
creations.
Yeah.
It's a new world. It's like,
It is a new world.
But there's excitement.
yeah,
Of course, of
Yes.
course.
And that, I think we should leave
Especially
the
when
program.
you don't know
Yeah.
what's coming.
There's
you get
plenty
even more-
excitement,
Yeah.
I mean, and there's plenty opportunities.
and we have to provide some
Endless.
evidence of hope also, because for a lot of
Yes.
people are destitute and day to day it's a struggle in terms of their livelihood.
Yeah.
So these are people we have to know who are vulnerable and how,
Correct.
what resources, what kind of programs we can direct towards them to support. I think that's critical.
Because we can feel excited, but we're not everyone.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we have to carry others
Yeah.
along and
I
provide
mean,
that sort of hope
I have always
as
been
well.
critical about government social
Yeah.
program. This is one time I am not going to be critical because I understand the need. That is out there.
Yeah. And even more people have fallen into the bracket of
Correct.
needing
That's
social
correct.
help. So the
That's
net,
correct.
the safety net
correct.
has now expanded.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your perspectives this morning. Thanks for waking up early.
Yeah, that's a challenge. But
Thanks for waking up early.
It's once a week, so it's not that
Thanks
bad.
for waking up early.
Thank you. Pleasure.
You're welcome. Folks, it was our debut of Perspectives here on MTV. And of course, we were on Facebook pages. Partygrenada, thank you very much, Nazim Benjamin and Co. Richie Oliver, our producer here, thank you. Kishan, our producer, and Kishan Thomas. How can I forget Kishan's name? Maybe it's too early in the morning. Kishan Thomas, our producer for this program. Thank you so much, Kishan. Richie Oliver and his technical team. Thank you, guys. Thank you so very much. MTV, thank you for broadcasting. We appreciate it. Look forward to a long and fruitful relationship with you. And of course, broadcasting on your Facebook page as well. Partygrenada, Nazim Benjamin. Thank you so very much for being a good Grenadian as always. And wherever we were carried this morning on Facebook, thanks to all of you. We're going to see you next week, Monday, when we would have some more perspectives. I'm Brenda Batiste. Have a great day, all.